Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome. I am going to open up our chat bar here on the side. If you want to do me a favor and just type in hi, hello, you could also type in where you're coming from. This is more for you than it is for me right now. This is how you will be able to submit questions when we get to the question portion. So you want to test that it is actually working for you. Hello, everybody. Amazing, amazing. Coming in from all over Canada and the US. Welcome. Awesome. So as you're coming on in, if you can just say hi, hello, let us know where you're coming in from. Again, this is your way and opportunity to be able to test that your ability to ask questions is working. Hello, Lynn from Victoria. I was just in Victoria last weekend, speaking all about perimenopause there. It was awesome. It was beautiful, 8 degrees and sunny. Can't complain about that. All right. So we give the first couple of minutes here just for everybody to get themselves comfy, get themselves into the space. I would definitely recommend that you have pen and paper nearby. We will be sending the recording out. Typically, we send the recording out about 48 hours later, but there is nothing as powerful as having pen in hand and paper. Even when I'm teaching the workshops, I always make sure that I have a notebook because sometimes I say things where I'm like, I want to circle back to that. I always have highlighters nearby. And this is going to help you actually integrate the information and help you learn on a deeper level. And the whole reason that we are here tonight, or whatever time it is where you live, is so that we can actually be learning more and understanding. I am not somebody, if you've never done one of my workshops before, come into my masterclass, I'm not just going to talk at you. I am going to teach you some different things tonight. I'm going to open up the floor for some Q&A. We have 90 minutes, which sounds like a long time, but when you are teaching about women's health and hormones and everything in between, honestly, we could like join in our pajamas and I could keep you here for a few days and just feed you some snacks and we could get down to business. So 90 minutes is actually a very short period of time to talk about the things we're going to talk about. I am going to stick around for about 20 to 30 minutes after in the room here. And I'm going to stay for some additional questions. And I really do. I don't take it lightly when you create the time and space to be here live. I was teaching today inside of a business mentorship and saying that we have just over 1,000 women that registered for this, which we promoted about a week and a half ago. And we typically end up somewhere between 70 to 100 that come on live. And we're sitting in that. We're just over 100. So it's always interesting, right? We register for things and either timing just doesn't work out and then we're going to listen to the recording, or we register and then we hold on to it and we kind of file it somewhere. And I hope that for all of you that are tuning in, this is something that not only you're engaging in live tonight, but you do go back to and listen again. There are things that I'm going to talk about tonight that you're going to already know. There are things that you're going to be reminded of. And then there are things you're going to be like, I did not know that, or I knew that, but I did not understand it to that capacity. Welcome from Australia. What time is it there? What time is it in Australia right now, Holly? All right, from that 11 a.m. Okay, that is appropriate. All right, amazing. So here is how we are going to roll. Like I said, this is a 90-minute masterclass. I'm going to dive right in because there's so much to cover. I am going to hang around at the end for some Q&A. And what I will say is that if I can ask you to hold questions while I'm actually in the thick of teaching the thing, and then what I will do is I will pause for a moment and I'll say, does that land? Do you have any questions specifically around that? And then I'll teach the next section of it. And then I'll open up that Q&A at the end. It gets really distracting if the comments just get peppered with questions throughout the whole thing. And what I want you to do is just trust me tonight. Just trust that if you're holding a question that I've not yet addressed, that it's probably coming. I have done this many times. I do know the questions that most women have. And then, as I said, when I open up the floor, we can go there. Now, just a couple of things before I get into some of those. I'm going to be diving into things, like I said, 90 minutes of information that it's taken me years to study, to learn, to understand, working with women one-on-one in clinical practice, teaching programs for a very long time online and in person, is that I cannot answer questions that are specific about things like medication, dosing, Sometimes people will ask me questions, and I'm like, I would need to know so much more information about your health, your background, and those kind of things. So I will do my best to help to give you an answer. And if I don't know the answer, I will also make sure, to maybe connect you in the direction of somebody who might. So let's just make sure a couple things here. Everybody can hear me and clearly see me. Yes, I just need a few people to give me a thumbs up. If you have any tech issues tonight, um, you know, when in doubt, log out and come back. I will still be here. Okay. All right. Awesome. Very good. All right, ladies, this is going to be fun. And this is actually how I want you to start to think about any of the changes that are going on in your body. And I know you're like, you're kidding me, right? Fun. But perimenopause is not quick, right? It's not a month long, it's not a year long for most women, it's years. And sometimes it's over the course of a decade or longer that our body is starting to give us a lot of these symptoms and signs, and where we're just feeling like we're in this constant flux, we're in limbo, and we can oftentimes crave what it used to feel like to have some kind of baseline, right? To feel like we had some kind of homeostasis where we knew what was going on with our body. And if something felt out of whack, we could just quickly tighten a few things up with our diet or with our exercise or get a little bit more sleep. And then everything would kind of feel like it just falls back in track and in alignment. And in perimenopause and menopause, very rarely does that work. And it's because our body is going through continual changes. We don't just have this drop off of sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. We don't just have fluctuating testosterone. We don't simply have, insulin and glucose levels that are, all over the place. We have many different things that are all happening at the same time. So when you hear people describe it as something that is systemic, meaning it's whole body, it's whole person, that is exactly what it is. So when we talk about an integrative way of supporting our body or a holistic way of looking at things, a functional way of looking at things, really what all of that means is it's whole body, whole person, whole life. So we're talking about the physical that's happening. We're talking about the mental, emotional that is going on. And my goal tonight with you is to help you come away from our time together feeling more empowered, feeling more knowledgeable and educated, feeling better equipped, feeling more confident. So now, when you are going to work with your doctor or your naturopath or your nurse practitioner, your OBG, your endocrinologist, whoever is your health team that you have surrounding you, that you are working with, you feel like you're part of the process now. This is a very co-collaborative energy. We don't want to feel like we're just being told, this is what you do, this is what you have to do, or just given blank statement, yes or no's without understanding the information behind it. We want to feel like we go into our appointments, we very clearly know what to be asking for when we're, having certain tests run, or we're being presented information and options about different things, that we actually feel like we understand what's being presented to us and that we know, a highly confident answer that we can give. We also want to be able to understand day in and day out, as our body is starting to change, that not everything is meant to like be in panic mode. You have a heavy period one month and you're like, oh my gosh, something is wrong. You can't sleep for a few months and oh my gosh, what is going on? And you start to have thinning hair, or you start to gain weight, all of these different symptoms. This is a time in your life where you very deliberately need to get curious and pay attention. It is, I find, really helpful for women if you can actually start to track some of how you're feeling, and not in a way where you are noting every single thing and it feels very frenetic in your body, because that can definitely make things feel worse, but where you're just noticing, this cycle this month, that was different. Like, that's not what I was used to having. Or wow, my fuse is really short. Like, I used to be a calm, cool person, and now not so much. I'm not so calm or cool. And speaking of cool, maybe you're having hot flashes. Maybe you're noticing you're waking in the middle of the night and you are sweating and you're like, this is different. You have heart palpitations you didn't have before. Your level of motivation, commitment, consistency, the sharpness of your brain, your memory, your energy, like you're just like, what is happening? And I do this with my hands because I know when I'm talking to so many women, I feel like I can as they're saying these things out loud and describing to me how they're feeling, it's like there's this flow chart that's kind of building above them. And it's all the different symptoms or like ingredients of what's not feeling like it's working right now. And they just want to be able to grab a hold of the thing and put it back in their system and be like, can you work again, please? Like, can you please, brain, find me the words at the tip of my tongue and clear the fog and things like that. So it's really important to me that you have a deeper level of understanding and you know that this isn't something that we just learned tonight and then that's it. You're not like, oh yeah, I did this perimenopause masterclass, like I'm good. I'm good now until I don't have a period anymore and now I'm, menopause and beyond and then maybe I'll take a class then. And no, it doesn't quite work like that. And speaking as somebody who does this for a living, I'm 45 years old, I'm in perimenopause. There's lots of different things that are shifting, and there's lots of things that aren't shifting. So some of you are here preventatively. You are here because you want to be proactive. You're actually feeling great right now, but you want to get ahead of understanding what to pay attention to. Some of you just don't know if you're in perimenopause. You're like, I'm not really too sure. I still get a period. I have a little bit of symptoms. I might have this or that. But is that perimenopause or is that life? Is that my adrenals? Is it my thyroid? Is it because my partner is, snoring and keeping me up in the middle of the night? Or I have to still have a nightlight on in the hallway for a child or a pet? So we, at this time of our life, oftentimes everything gets brushed under the perimenopause rug. And if you look right now out into the world of perimenopause and menopause education, the the symptom list now has tipped to 103 different symptoms. And if you look at every single one of those symptoms, about 50% of them could also fall under the category of something else going on. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're someone who has, headaches that are worsening. You've got the brain fog. You're just not feeling cognitively clear and as sharp as you used to. Your energy is low. You're noticing that you've got some bloating and, you're constipated. So your body's not doing as good a job breaking things down. Your motility and elimination is slowing down. You feel like your brain is slowing down and you're getting some inflammation in the way of headaches. Well, this can be part of the perimenopause picture, but we would also want to look deeper into what's going on with your gut health. We would want to look deeper into what's going on with your thyroid health. So I say this starting off in this tonight because we're not at this point where like we're walking around with a label on that's like, hi, my name is Jen and I'm in perimenopause, right? It's like, hello, I'm a Virgo, Enneagram 3. Like we're not doing that. We're understanding that some of these symptoms, if not all of them, they're here to get your attention. And then it's up to us to start to kind of piece together, well, what else could this mean and what could be going on in my body? So, if you were to listen to a few different things in social media right now or online, and you are hearing like just go and get on HRT and it's going to change everything. For some women, that will be their reality. They will start, hormone replacement therapy and they will feel so much better and like they've gotten their life back. And other women will go on HRT and be like, I don't really feel like I noticed a difference. It's such a nuanced conversation, and we will go a little bit deeper in that tonight. But I just want to start off by kind of, creating the lay of the land here. I will also let you know that I don't have a potty mouth, but I do have a perimenopausal mouth. I do swear sometimes. I hope you can take it with a, grain of salt and humor, but sometimes there's just not another word to convey the energy behind something that is being explained, okay? So the average age of menopause is around 51. Now, this is what studies and data show, okay? So when we compile looking at, which by the way, when I looked up this stat today, there are 50 million peri and menopausal women right now on Earth. 50 million, okay? There's a lot of us that are all going through this at the same time. Now, everyone's experience is going to be very different. So when we're looking at the median age, we could have women that are much younger that are going into menopause, right? Meaning like full cessation of their period. And we could have women that are actually quite a bit older. In our clinical practice and inside of our programs, we have some women that are as young as, 38, 39, and 40, which would be considered, premature menopause that have cessation of their bleed. And we have some women who are 58 and 59 who are still getting a regular period who are like, I feel like I've paid my dues and I am done over here. And they're ready to be done. And so there definitely is this swing. And I'm going to take you through the 4 different phases of that journey of perimenopause. So some of the things that you'll be feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally, and what to notice and pay attention to, and then into that journey where, you get to that 12 months. Now, the other thing I'm going to say, and I will again go deeper into this, is that some women are put into surgical menopause. They've had their uterus removed, they had a partial or a full hysterectomy, maybe they've had a oophorectomy. There are women that, due to certain medications or certain treatments, they lost their period as a result of that. Certain viruses, depending on how hard your body gets hit by them, that may also stop your period if you are already leaning towards that perimenopausal window. Major stress. And I don't mean just like work is kind of getting under your skin. I mean traumatic stress, the loss of a loved one, a marriage that you didn't see was going to end, the loss of a home, like something that just literally feels like I did not see that coming at all. That can be enough to, create that maximum tension, to overfill the cup and to be that final straw. So important to understand that. Some of the things that I think are really important we're going to talk about tonight are that the lifestyle elements of the nutrition, of your movement and your exercise, your sleep, some of the baseline nutrients that I do see to be extremely beneficial for women, because you don't need to have cupboards full of supplements and stuff, is that we are not just doing this to try to support changing sex hormones or changing adrenal hormones like cortisol. We are doing this to protect our brain health. Our brain goes through massive changes in perimenopause and menopause. You have receptor sites for progesterone and estrogen all throughout your body, including your brain. Your breast health goes through huge changes. Your gut microbiome, outside of pregnancy and postpartum, perimenopause to menopause is the single largest shifting landscape of a woman's gut health ever in her life. So there are big changes that happen here. The other thing is your heart health, your bone health, and your genitourinary health. So your, UTIs, candida, yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, painful intercourse, uterine prolapse. There are a lot of shifts that are happening. So we are not just trying to move through our 40s and our 50s and 60s and, not gain weight and have no lines on our face and embrace this like anti-aging culture. That's not what this is about. This is that our body was very reliant on a lot of these hormones that are now in major fluctuation, and we have to start to bring a lifestyle in that is going to help to upregulate the health of your breast, your bones, your brain, your heart, and everything moving forward. So we are out of this time in our life as women where we're trying to be as tiny as possible, take up as little space. We are definitely choosing to be strong and powerful. And this is not just about picking up and lifting heavy things. This is being strong and powerful in your connection to your body, in your intuition, in your knowing, and in your decisions. Right? You are at a time in your life, ladies, where if you are on this call and you are in your late 30s, you're in your 40s and your 50s and your early 60s, you are going to be presented with some of the biggest decisions you will ever have to make in your life that come along with your health, that involve your family, that could involve your career, that can involve your finances, involve taking care of your children, taking care of your parents. And so we actually need to be our healthiest right now. We need to have all of our agency, all of our faculties to be able to show up in our life and not have this energy of like, you need to go and crush it and constantly be striving and constantly be achievement on top of achievement. It's not about that. We want to be able to live in bodies that we actually feel like we are living in flow with, that you are participating in your health and your body, not being dragged around by it, not being forced, and definitely not moving into this time where you feel like you have to be perfect. Like that is just an energy that we need to completely break up with. And, here's the thing is that as women, so many of us, we have to unwind a lot of our habits, a lot of our behaviors, a lot of our stories, a lot of the way that we actually maybe lived our life as a teen and in our 20s and our 30s and maybe even in our 40s, which is the way that we survived. It's how we were shown, praise, love, and accolades. It's what was expected of us. It's what we felt we really needed to do. And you spend enough time sitting and having really good conversations with women, and you will learn that most women, the internal issues going on, the stress, the lack of feeling seen, heard, and understood, the lack of actual healthy cortisol production, which so many women think their cortisol is through the roof. And I do see that in testing. I will see women where it's like, whoa, your cortisol production is very dysregulated right now, and how your body is using cortisol is not doing so good. But I'm going to tell you, in perimenopause and menopause, what I see more often is a lack of cortisol production. I see the body is fucking exhausted. That is actually what I see, is that it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of effort. It is not for lack of trying to get enough protein and eat enough fiber and get your steps in and all of that. It is that on a soul level, the body is exhausted. And sometimes we don't allow ourselves to really feel the totality of that, because we're like, this is my life. I chose it. There's no time to be exhausted. Other people have it worse than me. Whatever it is that we tell ourselves, we don't really allow ourselves to have the opportunity to recognize that that is having as much of an effect on your symptoms as your estrogen production from your ovaries declining, as you not ovulating anymore, which is impacting your progesterone, as your body starting to catabolize lean muscle tissue and testosterone levels decreasing, as your libido not being the strength that it was. This is not just about those hormones. This is about everything in our life and our bodies that are impacting the way that we are functioning. So I am just curious here. And some of you may be at a time where you are like, I actually feel fantastic, but that energy of like being exhausted on some level, how many of you can resonate with that? Okay, I'm just curious to know here. And if you're not, if you're like, actually, I feel better than I have felt in a really long time, that is incredible. But part of this process is like when we work with women, everybody comes in and they're like, I want to know the food to eat. I want to know what your macro split is. Tell me what your workout plan is. I want to know your supplement stack. And I'm going to just start to do that. And it's like, okay, cool. So I can tell you all those things, but guess what? You and I don't live the same life. And you may be at a time where you are like ready to rev things up and to implement some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. And you might be at a time where you have to lie on the ground to just digest everything I just said. And so you have to meet yourself where you're at. Because if you keep raising your personal bar to expect more of yourself, and you are not acknowledging the state that you are currently at right now with your health, it's going to be really difficult to get you to a place where you're going to start to feel better, right? Like some women, it's not about 10,000 steps, it's about 10 minutes. Right? Sometimes it's not about 10 minutes of moving your body, it's 10 deep breaths. And it's like you have to rebuild that from the ground up. So it's, it's just important to recognize where you are at. We are definitely, it's oftentimes referred to as the sandwich generation. I don't know that I feel like this sandwich generation energy, but I definitely feel this, kids are growing. I'm at a point where I'm growing. My parents are aging. I am in between, so I am sandwiched between them. But it's more so internally of like, what do I really want moving forward? And this is the time to claim it. So I want you to get as healthy as possible. So you actually have the option to claim your health. You actually have the option to choose what your next step is going to be. You have the health, you have the vitality, and you have the energy that you can start to make some of these newly aligned decisions that are going to have you feeling absolutely incredible. So let's start to talk about some of these different phases. Now, again, I'm going to kind of give you these age ranges, but that doesn't mean that they are like static, okay? This is obviously going to be different for everyone's body. Early phase perimenopause, when you start to kind of notice something shifting, is typically between the ages of 35 and 40, I'd say to 43, because for some women, it doesn't happen until they're, into their early 40s. And so some things you might notice would be temperature changes in your body. So if you always used to run cold, now you might run a little warm. If you used to run warm, now you might be cold. You may notice that you are warmer at night when you are sleeping, and you may wake because of that. And you just don't cool down like you used to, or you don't warm up like you used to. You may notice the odd cycle change here and there. I find in this early stage, it's not significant, but it's like, Like you may have, a regular 28 or 29-day cycle, more months than not. But then every now and again, you have like a 26-day cycle or a 25-day cycle, and you're like, oh, that came early. And you make note of it. I find with perimenopause, this is what you'll notice more so than a period coming later. As you get into later stage and you're more into your mid 40s and into your late 40s, that can start to happen. But in the beginning, what we typically notice is a shortened cycle length, meaning from the first day that you bleed until the next time that you bleed, that time is getting shorter and shorter between. And where this can really impact women is, let's say that, you would have normally had one period a month. So you bled 12 times a year. But now your periods are coming closer together and you're actually having a whole additional period each year, or sometimes you're having 2 extra periods in a year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it can actually take quite a toll on the body. And so the other thing to really pay attention to here is that if the quality of your period is changing, do you start to get spotting right before your bleed? Is the heaviness of it, the texture of it, anything different about it? You may start to notice around this stage as well that your mood is definitely shifting. So I said a little while ago that maybe if you were somebody who was super even keel, and then you're starting to notice that you actually get ticked off a lot quicker than you used to, and you can't just let things, like roll off your shoulders. That's kind of something to pay attention to. PMS increases, breast tenderness is increasing, and you may just notice your body retaining water and holding on to some weight in areas where you're like, this feels different. And it in that first phase, it's not typically massive. You're not like reaching out and saying, I've gained 15 pounds out of nowhere. You're like, I've got these 3 to 5 pounds that are just feeling really stubborn right around my waist or typically around the bra strap. And you're like, nothing I'm doing is really shifting that. The other big thing that I notice with women around this age is that your workout response changes. So not as much energy. Definitely noticing feeling dizzy or lightheaded during workouts, not able to actually push the same way that you used to, and then your recovery starts to change. So maybe you used to be able to do a more intense workout, then head to go and run errands or go to work and do stuff with the kids and that. And now you're like, if I go do that workout, if I go take that class, I'm going to have some downtime later because I'm going to need to actually process. The secondary phase, which is around 41 to 45, okay? I would 100%, if you are not already tracking your cycle, these changes, your symptoms, this is free. Start to do it because it's going to give you so much information. And when you go to your doctor, when you go to work with your naturopath or your nurse practitioner, whoever you're working with, you're going to have your own data because you're going to be like, look I've been tracking. I have information I can show you. Now, depending on who you're working with, they may be like, I don't need to see that. They may not care, but you're going to have it for yourself. So this is empowerment tip number 1 is start to track. Okay. Because this is typically where you're going to start to notice bigger changes happening, where now it's not every now and again the cycle is shorter, the cycle overall is shorter. Now remember, your period and your cycle aren't the same thing. Your period is when you're bleeding. Your cycle is the amount of time, in between one to the next. So you might just start to notice, like, I never have a 28-day period anymore. They're like all consistently 25 to 26. Oftentimes this is happening because we're starting to have a, lower quality production of progesterone, or now maybe we're having some anovulatory cycles, which means you still have enough estrogen in the body that is going to grow the lining of your uterus. It's going to thicken the endometrium, but you don't have enough progesterone that's going to hold that uterine lining in place long enough for you to have that same 28, 29, 30-day cycle you used to. So the progesterone drops a little prematurely, and now you start to have the spotting, and now you have this period that comes earlier. You also might start to notice some things happen in terms of some breakthrough bleeding that happens, right? So you might notice around the time that you ovulate or mid-month that you get like a little bit of spotting. Your sleep is probably starting to be a little bit hit and miss. So you might still sleep through the night, but you definitely sleep lighter. If you wake up to go to the bathroom, it's usually challenging around this time of your life to get yourself right back to sleep. As where maybe before you could get up, pee, hop in bed, and you go right back to sleep. Now, if there's anything that wakes you up, you're like, oh my God, here we go. Now I'm going to be up for a few hours. And one of the reasons this happens, well, there's a couple. The first is it's understanding why you're waking. So if you're typically waking between like 1 and 4 in the morning, we always want to take into consideration first is your blood sugar. Did you have really stable, good quality blood sugar throughout the day leading into that night's sleep? Was there any significant stress that was going on? Did you drink any alcohol in the hours before bed? Because that will definitely impact your sleep. It'll also impact the way that your hypothalamus is regulating your body temperature. So you will wake up dehydrated, you will wake up hot, the body will, and it'll be difficult to get back to sleep because anytime that the system is waking you, what it generally means is that there's a little spike in cortisol that is happening from your adrenals. And cortisol is quick to rescue you. It's a beautiful hormone. So it's quick to jump on the scene. When, you wake up tossing and turning, you stand up to go pee. And as soon as you stand up and you're in motion, and if you see light now into the bathroom, you're giving your body all these cues like, okay, the day has started. That was not a lot of sleep last night, but you are up and in motion and you are looking at light and you're like flushing things and washing hands. Like, okay, I need to start your cortisol awakening response. And you end up having a premature cortisol awakening response. Your body starts to bring this cortisol in. Quick to happen, slow to burn off. So now you lie back in bed thinking, I'm just going to tuck myself back in. You have no idea what I just explained is happening behind the scenes. You lie in bed and now you toss and turn, and you have to wait until the cortisol is essentially burned off and starts to lower back down. Your body recognizes, hold up, it is dark in here. We are lying still. Her breathing is slowing. False alarm. I think cortisol needs to go down so that melatonin can come back up, and I think we need to drop back into some sleep. And you fall back asleep, but only for a few hours, because then now the real light's coming up and your alarm's going off and you have to go to work. This is a big one to pay attention to, okay? Because there is a direct correlation between really poor sleep throughout perimenopause and a harder transition into menopause and beyond. Harder time with your weight, harder time regulating your inflammatory markers and response, brain health overall. So we really want to dial in sleep. And yes, I will get there. The other thing is where you're gaining your weight. So I talked about in the beginning, you might notice a little bit around your belly and a little bit of your pants. You're just like, these used to fit and now they feel uncomfortable. Upper arms, around the face and around that bra strap. And the way women will describe this is like, I feel like I'm just getting thicker. I feel like there's a layer of padding and I feel puffy in my body. And so that is something to pay attention to. And when that kind of weight starts to happen, again, if you have this kind of weight happening, where you're also waking up in the middle of the night, the two are not separate. They are very much connected. So if we can work on supporting the stable blood sugar and get you better quality sleep, that is going to help with these body composition changes that you are noticing. And those things are going to help with more energy throughout the day, which is going to then help with you having the ability to have the stamina to perform in your workouts and recover more optimally. So what I hope you take away from that is that, you don't have three separate things you have to do where you're like, great, need to stabilize blood sugar, need to get sleep, need to, work out. No, if we work on stabilizing your blood sugar, it helps your sleep, it helps your performance. If we optimize digestion, it reduces inflammation, it supports blood sugar, supports sleep. So it's understanding that every one thing you do for your health, you actually have a beautiful domino effect of support that is going to happen, okay? The brain fog and the lack of focus. This is oftentimes when I find that women start to complain about this in their early to mid 40s, where they're just like, I am in a meeting and I am hearing the people and I am like, I do not know what you are saying. And so this is a big one. And typically I find this is right around the time where if you had any kind of little bit of digestive issues, they amp up: bloating, gas, reflux, constipation, diarrhea. And constipation is an interesting one for women because you'll think if you go to the bathroom every day that you're not constipated. I always spend time with people. And when I teach about this in courses like the Perimenopause Project, like literally a whole class on just your gut health, your liver and your gallbladder, and on poop, because you could go to the bathroom every day and still be constipated. You could still be impacted with fecal matter. You could be having what's considered like a false regular poop, which is it's because of your coffee. It's because you're using a laxative, which that is what coffee is, to encourage the release of the bowels. And if we took the coffee away, we got rid of that stimulant, would your body still be able, on its own accord, to contract around your fecal matter and use its own minerals, its own enzymes, and its own motility agents to help you produce a healthy bowel movement? A whole piece of poop that is of good quality and good texture, not deer poop, not muck, not a mud pie, not all of those things. So a lot of women are very misguided or under the notion that they're having, they have no digestive issues, but it's because so many people are struggling that we're like, everybody at work is doing this. This is our whole family, how we poop. We all, pass gas at the table. We all burp. We're all bloated. We all have to have elastic waist pants by 5. That's not normal. It's very common, but that is not a normal response for our bodies. And again, if you ignore this, and you're just like, I'm going to take some Tums, I'm going to use some, Pepto-Bismol, I'm going to do those things, I'm going to just use a PPI for the rest of my life. This is not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you end up having more serious issues happen. So paying attention to your gut health, because in perimenopause, you will start to notice things like H. pylori, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, an increase in food sensitivities. And it's just like, I freaking feel like I can't eat anything because everything makes me feel bloated and like I am pregnant by the end of the day. These are not things you ignore. If someone's told you have IBS and they then don't know what to tell you beyond IBS, you need to find someone new to work with, because IBS is a warning sign. It is not just something we tell people and then go say, take a lactate pill and use a probiotic. There's something deeper that's going on. And so your gut health in perimenopause is paramount. Okay? We run stool testing on all of the women that come into the perimenopause project, because if your gut health is in check, every other symptom that you have, including those connected to your adrenals and your thyroid and your sex hormones, is going to improve. Because when your gut health is in check, when you can digest what you're eating, means you're breaking it down, you are absorbing all the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, all the antioxidants. This is the powerhouse for the cells of your body. So while we're very caught up in talking about protein and fat and carbohydrates, so good, awesome, here for it. And it doesn't matter if you're getting in 100 to 120 grams of protein a day if you are burpy, bloated, farted, gassy, all the things, and you can't digest what you're breaking down. We have to work on the gut microbiome to make sure you can uptake what's actually happening. And guess what happens when you do that? You're going to release some inflammation, which you'll release some pounds. Your skin's going to be better. Your hair is going to grow again. Your nails are going to be better. Your energy is going to be better. Your tongue's not going to be coated. You're not going to have the bad breath. So many things are going to start to clear up. We just don't realize, walking through a world where we're told everything is about caloric deficit, all about macros, and all about lifting heavy things, that you actually could have a body that is stagnant right now. It is congested and full of junk, which is poop, which is stagnant lymph, which is just stuff throughout, and that we have to make sure that we optimize from the bottom up. So I hope this is making sense as I'm explaining this, because to be quite honest, if we can dial in what's going on with your gut health and with your digestion, OMG, we end up supporting so many other areas of your body, okay? So if you go to the bathroom every day, how do you know if you're still constipated? You're really looking at the quality of it. And so it's a couple key things, like I've said. Do you need caffeine to go to the bathroom? So it's like, if you were to get up in the morning and you were to drink water, and that's what you were to have in the morning, would you still have that morning bowel movement? How long does it take you to have a bowel movement? If you have to sit with your phone, read a couple of chapters, crush a magazine while you're on the toilet because you have to relax and it takes you 20 minutes, that is a sign of having slow motility, which is a sign of constipation. If you feel like you go to the bathroom multiple times in a day, but you're working on one poop, so you're like, I have a good quality poop, but it takes me, in the morning, I get like a little bit, and then I'm like, I'll come back for you later. And then I come back and sit, and then there's a little bit more that comes out. And then later I'm like, I am uncomfortable, and I go and I'm like, there's the rest of it. That's also a sign of being constipated. Okay. So yes, doing things like increasing your hydration, so important. Most women are dehydrated. Okay. Making sure that you are getting in my opinion, and again, clinically, like, this is a liter of filtered water. 2 of these a day would be ideal. Okay. I sit somewhere in the neighborhood of taking in about 4 liters of fluid in a day. Now, I've done this for a very long time. I'm not going pee nonstop. My body is used to this. I use minerals in my water. I count when I make a liter smoothie and I'm adding just like that much non-dairy milk or coconut water, and the rest is water. That's my hydration, my herbal teas that I'm having. So it doesn't have to be, if you feel like plain water is a barrier for you, here's what I wouldn't do. Lot of women who come into the perimenopause project who have the bloating and the gas, when you ask them what their water is, it is always sparkling water. It is San Pellegrino, it is Zivia's, it is soda water. And so you're drinking nonstop bubbles and then you are bubbly, right? So it's like, oh, and I get it because, we're working at decreasing alcohol and those kind of things, but you have to understand, what that can also potentially create. And not in everybody. Some of you might have bubbly and you're like, I feel awesome with it. And some of you are like, frig, now I need to shift how much bubbly I'm drinking. Okay. I'm going to come back to some of those questions in a moment. I just want to pull back over so I can get into that third and fourth stage so that I make sure that I get this info in before I transition into some of those questions. So now let's talk like 45 to 50. Okay. So this is like I turned 45 in September. So I'm in that transition in the second half of my 40s. I feel pretty good. Now, again, I do this for a living. I definitely have some things that I'm noticing shift and change. And I'm in direct conversation with my healthcare practitioners about this. But here's the biggest things that happen in the last 5 years of that decade of the ages 40 to 50 is sleep for most women is definitely a struggle. Now, here's the thing. You might actually be a wonderful sleeper, but you sleep with someone who is not. And that is why you're not sleeping. I love my husband so much, but the man is in Whistler this week skiing and I am sleeping like a champion. And I don't have to take anything for that to happen. It is me, myself, and I am sleeping so good. He snores sometimes, he gets up to pee in the middle of the night, he tosses, he turns, and that wakes me up. So I could believe I am not a good sleeper. But this, in fact, is not true. And I am proving it. I'm creating evidence for myself right now because for 3 nights I have slept alone and I am sleeping fabulously. So, is the sleep you? Or is it the person you are sleeping with? Is it your pets? Is it the temperature of your room? Those kind of things. If you are someone who is waking every single night, you cannot fall asleep, you cannot stay asleep, you are waking much earlier than you desire, and it's not from anybody else, 100% you need to be looking into this. Blood sugar stability, adrenal support, thyroid management, and quite possibly between the ages of 45 and 50, you're having a conversation about bioidentical progesterone. Progesterone can be wonderful to help you sleep, and you have to work with a practitioner to titrate this, meaning figuring out the right amount. I'd say on average, most practitioners are going to recommend somewhere between 100 to 200 milligrams for women to start with. Usually between 45 and 50, if you are still getting a period, you would take this in a cycling manner, meaning you would take this the 2 weeks before your period is beginning, and then you would be off of your progesterone from day one of when your bleed happens and to halfway through that month. And you would have this conversation. So progesterone can help you sleep. Here's how you know if you're taking too much is sometimes if you feel kind of sedated, like you wake up and you're groggy. This is the same thing if you take too much melatonin. We want to be able to have a good night's sleep, but you need to be able to actually get up and function. We need your adrenals to be able to kick in that cortisol awakening response. So we do want to be mindful that we're not like drugging ourselves to sleep. And I have seen everything. I have clients who are like, I go to bed every night with NyQuil. I am using neocitrin. I am taking Gravol to go to sleep. I am using actual medicated, sleeping pills. Women that are doing combination things, and I understand it because they are so desperate to get the sleep. But we have to understand, like, why aren't you sleeping in the first place? And at this time of our life, in our 40s and our 50s, we are looking at what is happening hormonally. What are the hormones declining that used to support a good night's sleep, and how can we coach that up? Okay. The other thing happening here in the 45 to 50 range is this is really where if you've not had a recent full thyroid panel, you've not had your vitamin D levels checked, you haven't had your magnesium, your sodium, your potassium, you haven't had a full blood panel done. And I'm not talking about getting your hormones tested at this time. I mean like full panel in terms of your lipids, cholesterol, thyroid, full iron workup, all of those things to understand. There are things changing in your body. It doesn't matter how healthy you are living. There are still things that systemically are starting to decrease. Some things will increase. You could be eating the most healthy diet, and by nature, with the reduction of estradiol in our bodies, of estrogen, E2, the primary form that we produce, all of us will start to develop a form of insulin resistance, meaning our body will not become as sensitive to utilizing, uptaking, and regulating our insulin and our glucose. Our liver enzymes are going to change. This will impact your cholesterol. And this is why women will say, I do not understand why, but my cholesterol is increasing and I feel like I'm doing everything right. So if we look at your diet and it's like you're doing an adequate job of getting in fiber, you're getting in healthy protein, you're getting enough carbohydrates, because I see women make this mistake. They don't get enough carbs. They're consuming far too much fat, kind of doing okay in the protein arena. And if we start to bring the carbohydrates in, that can be enough to actually get things back in check with the body as a whole. But maybe the liver needs support as well too. Our liver goes through a tremendous amount of work every day of our life. But when we have hormones involved, and the liver is also responsible for detoxification and managing all the chemical, exposure that we have in the world, when we then get to a time in peri and in menopause where the body is like, I just don't have the same resources that I used to. I don't have the same team members on board. I don't have the same abundance of hormones. What your body is telling you, ladies, when you start to have some of these symptoms show up or things in your test results, like the high cholesterol, you're noticing more skin issues, more rashes, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, hives. You're noticing the hair thinning. You're noticing ridges in your nail beds. You're noticing all of these things. This is not your body failing you. This is your body working really fucking hard for you and trying to say, like, excuse me, I need you to pay attention. I need you to take off that weighted vest while you're trying to go do all your steps. And I need you to sit your ass down for a second and really pay attention to what's going on. Because that weighted vest walk, that maybe is going to be good for some of you for your bones. Some of you, it's not going to be great for you, but that's not going to be the thing that's going to help address what I just talked about. It's really starting to dial in and understanding our body is simply not as resourced. So we need to make sure we're eating well, that we're getting that rest. We're bringing in some of the supplements. We're bringing in some herbs potentially and some hormone therapy when it feels like that is appropriate to support our system overall. Okay. So you just have to remember your glands aren't responding the same. So when women go and get things like their follicle stimulating hormone tested, FSH, one of the markers, and this is not always indicative that this is what's happening, okay? So just hear what I'm saying. One of those markers that women will be told to get tested to confirm if you are late stage perimenopause or if you're in menopause is they will go and look at your FSH. And if that level is above 20, 25, they will say it looks like you are headed towards menopause or quite potentially like, sometimes they'll say things like postmenopausal. But if you still have a period, you're not postmenopausal. And so what's happening is that FSH is being secreted in your brain, in your pituitary, which is the same gland that produces your thyroid stimulating hormone, which is the same gland that's responsible for your luteinizing hormone. And this gland is sending hormones that are yelling down to your ovaries, like, excuse me, you need to mature those follicles. You need to be producing some eggs. You need to be ovulating so we can create some progesterone. Like, this is what we're designed to do. Everybody get on the train. And your ovaries are like, excuse you, I work part-time now. I now work part-time. I'm semi-retired and I'm going to be retiring sooner than later. So y'all up there need to figure some things out. And this is the part of our health where we've not been taught as women that when we do not have that abundance of these hormones from the ovaries anymore, where does your body look to now to protect you? Your gut health, your liver health, and your brain health, your bone health, your lifestyle. Your body now has to go, okay, well, if those glands, those beautiful ovaries are no longer able to do the full-time job they had, we need to bring other people in. We're going to have to train some of these other systems in the body that we didn't think we had to step up. That's how this works in our system. And for some women, the lifestyle piece is going to be massive. And it can be enough to, give you a few more years where maybe you don't look at hormone replacement therapy. And for some women, it's not going to be enough. Why does it work that way? I cannot tell you unequivocally, but what I can say is that things like our ACE score, so your advanced childhood experiences, for any woman who scores 4 or higher, you have a higher vulnerability to having more oxidative stress in your system, to being more pro-inflammatory, and to needing some additional support, more so than the woman whose score is 3 or not at all. If you have certain, genetic predispositions. Now, genetics do not determine what is going to happen. You could have an entire line of women in your family who had heart disease, who had various types of, cancers, who had autoimmune conditions. That does not mean that you are automatically going to have those things happen in your body. However, there is a genetic predisposition, which is like a genetic pre-exposure. And so that can impact some of these things as well too. This is why being educated along the way, attending workshops like this, coming into programs like the Perimenopause Project, listening to the podcast is so important, so that when or if you come to a time in your life where something does show up in a test, someone asks you a certain question, there's something that you're concerned about, you've got some resources in your back pocket where this doesn't feel like it came out of left field and you have no idea what someone is talking to you about. Okay. The other thing at this time of your life is that it's very, very common to notice things happening like getting premenstrual migraines. So you may still be getting a period at this point, but you are getting headaches and you are getting migraines. This is because of that drastic fluctuation with estrogen, typically not enough progesterone. We will go through a period of time, ladies, where we are going to be more estrogen dominant. This is what happens to women when they say, I am getting like literally hemorrhagic periods now. I never had heavy periods. Now my whole period comes in like 2 days. I cannot leave the house. I've never had this happen before. And then it is gone. Or you have women that are like, I have had my period for 3 weeks or I've had it for months. I get it for 3 weeks. It stopped for a week. And this is what's been happening for months. First things first, we never ignore any of this. We do not just take a broom and go perimenopause and sweep it under the rug. You need to pay attention. If this happens one time, would I panic? I would not. If I noticed it happen again and again, I'm making an appointment with my healthcare provider. I am going to investigate things like fibroids or uterine polyps. I'm going to ask for a vaginal internal ultrasound. I'm going to dig a little deeper and be like, what is happening that's going on here? Okay. Now, we can notice this hemorrhagic bleeding because we have too much estrogen that's not opposed by progesterone. We can also start to notice things like the opposite of what I just described, where you have very scant periods. You're like, I don't even know if that was a period. I needed like a panty liner. I'm not really too sure. This would be declining estrogen. You might have it where you completely skip a period 1 month, and then next month your body is right back on track. That is where kind of this third phase of perimenopause that we are talking about here, okay? So again, these are conversations you want to be having with your provider. And there's a lot of things that you can be doing to support yourself, in this place, but you have to pay attention to what's going on. Later stage transition. When I taught this last, the age range I had for this was like 50 to 55. But if I could tell you the amount of women lately who have been reaching out that are 57 and 58 years old, like I said, that still have a period, I've actually changed what my guidelines are on this because some women are menstruating longer. Now, why does that happen? I've actually connected with colleagues on this. I've interviewed some different physicians and some researchers on this. And they feel that a lot of this has to do with our environment. It has to do with the chemical forms of body care products, makeup, hair care products, deodorants, the amount of plastics in our environment, our exposure to EMF, we are just swimming in this chemical pool, and these are contributing to elevated levels of estrogens that are contributing to longer bleeds happening, for longer periods of time. And so it's just some things to be aware and think of. When you're in this later stage, as your body is preparing to have that final period, like this for me, ladies, is where you have to optimize your brain health. This is where it's like, dementia is type 3 diabetes. So again, we come back to blood sugar, and women are 9 times more likely than men to develop Alzheimer's. This is not just like, something we're just kind of rhyming off as some sensationalized stat. This is true. And so if this is true, we're not depending on pharma to be giving us a medication, because there isn't a medication for dementia and Alzheimer's. And I know this firsthand because my mother-in-law, my husband's mom, suffers from this. There is no medication that stops this. So we have to get in front and live the lifestyle. Now, if I look back at my mother-in-law's lifestyle, there was alcohol involved, there was coffee involved. She was intermittent fasting before it was cool. It was just called make a pot of coffee, and that's what you live off in the morning until she got hungry enough and like ate some lunch and then had dinner, had a couple glasses of wine, which seemed benign, no big deal. Mouthful of mercury fillings, lived on a golf course that was loaded with pesticides, did not use her own voice and speak up for herself, did not exercise, sleep was horrendous. Like you name it, there was just so many things, the writing was on the wall. And so, it's very, very important that you take these things into consideration and that when you're talking to your doctor or you're talking to your naturopath, you are saying to them, I want to create a plan. So maybe you're in your mid 40s, you're in your early 50s, and you're actually feeling pretty good, but you're like, I want to get in front of this. I want to create a plan for myself. So what does that look like? When would I start to, doctor, when would I start to bring progesterone in? When would I start to bring estrogen in? Do we maybe need to talk about some testosterone or some pregnenolone or some DHEA? Now, for those of you in the US, all five of those hormones I just mentioned are much easier to get accessibility to. In Canada, not so much. And so, estrogen and progesterone are easier to get your hands on, but not the others unless you have a medical doctor who will sign off on that. This is the other reason that you need to be resourced, that you need to be educated, is you will at some point probably be met by no. We're not doing that. You don't need that. And I would encourage you that you have another conversation with someone else. You learn how to actually have these conversations. Because again, like I said, this can be, a massive change in a woman's life to be able to bring some of this hormone therapy in. I'll give you an example. So I started oral micronized progesterone, bioidentical. Prometrium is what the brand name is by. It's through a compounding pharmacy. And I started that almost a year ago. And the reason I started it is I started to notice like I would have a day or so of spotting before my period. And I was like, that's not the norm for me. And my sleep was getting a lot lighter. And I was noticing that I was getting just a little bit more pissed off than I normally would at like things that I shouldn't, right? Like people chewing, people breathing, like people just being a human. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, And so I started that and I noticed a good difference in it. I had a conversation with my naturopath last week and I said, hey, just curious, when would we talk about potentially bringing estrogen in for my body? And she's like, well, let's talk about your symptoms. I don't have any low estrogen symptoms. So she's like, right. So if we were just to listen to mainstream media and go and put you on estrogen because all of the big people are saying start the hormones before you need the hormones so that you're protecting your brain and your breast and your bones. She's like, if we give the body estrogen before you need it, you're going to have swollen breast. You're going to have painful breast. You're going to have mood swings. Your periods are probably going to be heavy. You're not going to be happy and you ain't going to be happy at me. And I was like, noted. I know intuitively I don't need that systemically in my body right now. I will pay attention. Now, let's talk about things like vaginal estrogen, because this is a totally different thing. Vaginal estrogen, which you insert vaginally, is not the same as if you were taking systemic estrogen, which would be oral or would be gel or would be a patch. Vaginal estrogen is for everybody. Vaginal estrogen is for the woman who is getting recurrent urinary tract infections, who she's always uncomfortable. She is feeling dry. Intercourse is painful. She can no longer insert a tampon or a menstrual cup because the pain is so uncomfortable. She's having urinary incontinence. She has pelvic organ prolapse. When we have such a dry area, because remember, estrogen is what is lubricating our body. Estrogen is lubricating your skin. It is lubricating all your orifices. And so when estrogen starts to lower, we can have vaginal tissue that's impacted by this. Now, the first step is you could do things like a hyaluronic acid for the vagina. And there's many different vaginal moisturizers that are on the market that you do not need a prescription for, okay? But for women who are getting the chronic bladder infections and who are getting yeast infection after yeast infection, and they have discomfort with sex, or they're having an infection that happens post intercourse, this is really important. And the interesting thing is that, on the black box, the FDA has a black box warning on vaginal estrogen about it causing cancer, which it 100% does not. And there are studies upon studies upon studies to show this. And, we have alcohol, which is a type 1 carcinogen that 100% causes cancer. No label on that, but on the vaginal estrogen, there is. And it is absolutely wild. But for that woman who is going to the doctor and the doctor's like, we're going to do a urine test, and they see blood in the urine. that does not mean that they have a urinary tract infection. Just because some of the neutrophils or eosinophils are elevated does not mean they have a UTI. They could have such severe vaginal dryness that there are lesions in the vagina, that they are actually bleeding from the dryness, and that is why it's showing up in the urine. Now, the crappy thing is that if you go to your doctor and your doctor's not open to that conversation, you are going to be put on antibiotic after antibiotic. If you have yeast infections, you are going to be given, Vagisil, Monistat, Canestin, you name it, which is totally changing the vaginal microbiome, and it will make the symptoms worse. So it's really just understanding that paradigm. And again, knowing this information and then being more invested when you go in to talk to your practitioner. So I think it's in week 6 inside the Perimenopause project. I have a naturopathic doctor who comes in, and we have a compounding pharmacist who is coming in this round and really talking about HRT. Who is it for? Who may it not be for? What are some of the contraindications? What are the things that you need to know and understand? So, that is something that it definitely is a higher level of understanding. Typically, Andrea, the dosing is 100 to 200 milligrams, but I can't say for you that's exactly what you would take. You would definitely have a conversation with your practitioner about that, okay? Depending what's going on. So when we talk about the symptoms, I think most everybody in here knows a lot of the common symptoms of what would be going on in our body, but some of the things you may not realize is we just talked about vaginal dryness, but dry eyes, dry ears, itchy eyes, itchy ears, vertigo, all the musculoskeletal issues that women have, like frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, low back issues, carpal tunnel, all of these things, again, when we have a reduction of these hormones, can most definitely be related. And here's how you would know if it is that versus something else. You go to bed and you literally wake up and you're like, I cannot move my shoulder. My range of motion is limited. I can't get my bra on and off by myself anymore. And you're like, I did not do like a heavy shoulder workout. I didn't do anything that would connect and make sense to this. This is where you would want to investigate that going on. The other thing I would say, and this is why the gut health is so important, is that if you're noticing you have new allergies you never had before, and your sensitivities are increasing, you're having something like a histamine response. Oftentimes women will notice this with, when they have certain cheeses, when they eat lots of avocados, when they have certain fruits and veggies that are high in histamines, definitely when they are drinking wine, they'll get congested, the face will get ruddy, and they just do not feel good. These are things to pay attention to. Racing heart, anxiety, and depression. Really, really important, because if you look up what happens in a panic attack, and you look at what happens in a woman who has declining hormones in her body during perimenopause and 100% of menopause, there are so many of these hormones that are indicative that this actually could be the reason that you are feeling this way. And instead of that being explored with women and supporting them with herbs, botanicals, and maybe HRT, most women are put on an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, antidepressants, and anti-anxiety. A lot of women, when they start to have these different symptoms, they are put on the birth control pill. They have the heavy periods, they have the bleeding that's inconsistent, they're given an IUD. And for a woman in the moment, this may feel like, oh my gosh, this is like, giving me my life back. However, there are some side effects, and there can be long-term effects of those things. So it's, again, just like knowing and understanding this, and intuitively asking yourself, like when we have women come into the Perimenopause project in their 50s and they are still on the birth control pill, or they're given a progestin only pill by their doctor and by their OBG, and they've been told that that's progesterone, that they're on hormone replacement therapy. I'm like, no, you're on synthetic. You're on synthetic progestin, which is nothing like the progesterone your own body makes. And so it's, again, bringing it to their attention and then helping connect them to different practitioners where they live, or online support, so that you can actually get onto the right thing. Now, some of you have asked about testosterone and libido. Here is the thing. Testosterone is really known as supporting the 4 M's in our body. So testosterone supports your memory, it supports your mood, it supports your muscle, and it supports your motivation. Testosterone is it's your drive hormone, and it does get looped into sex drive and into libido. And a lot of women will assume if they have no sex drive, they don't have the desire to be intimate, they're having a difficult time having an orgasm, they're just not into it, that it must mean that their testosterone is low. Sometimes that can be the case. More often than not, again, it's having a conversation and asking her, like, what is your stress level like? How supported are you in life? Are you depleted? Where are you feeling, exhausted? What's going on with her adrenal health and her thyroid health? And you start to support her nervous system and you start to bring some of those, assistance on board. And she may not need testosterone therapy. Now, if you do those things, and it still hasn't helped her, and you've got her lifting some weights a couple times a week and moving her body, you're working on that circadian rhythm, and there's still no change, then it's a conversation for potentially bringing in some testosterone therapy. But in Canada, that is going to happen typically with a medical doctor, unless your naturopath has a nurse practitioner or an MD that's part of the clinic. And that's just prescribing rights. They're different province to province, country, state to state, for that. So if you're somebody where you're like, not only, Jen, do I not have any libido, I just don't give a shit about other things. Like I have no drive. I have piles of unfinished thing around me. Here's the other thing I'm going to say. And I say this, with a lot of love and understanding that I definitely don't know everyone's background, but the amount of women in their 40s who are being diagnosed with ADHD, and that same diagnosis is not coming with a conversation around where they are at hormonally and what is going on in their body. There's not a full thyroid panel being run. They're not being talked to about perimenopause and menopause. We have to do a better job for women. We have to do a better job. And we have to be part of that being a better job. Now, we are very fortunate where we have actually had a medical director reach out to us as a company, Dr. Chidozie Ojibor, who is the founder of Vitract, who is a PhD and professor from the University of Toronto, who got wind of the Perimenopause Project. And we are actually going to be part of one of the first Canadian studies for women in this next round of the Perimenopause Project, where we are testing the gut microbiome. We are testing the stool of these women at the beginning and about 8 weeks after the program ends, and helping them to put together a methodology and lifestyle approach with their nutrition and their movement and certain supplements to help to notice the difference between the women where we can get the gut microbiome on board. Your gut and your brain share an axis, which means they share a highway. They are directly connected. So if all we do is try and treat what's happening up here and we're not addressing what's going on down here, or if all we do is focus on let's just poop without understanding that everything that's going on digestively is impacting what is going on with our neurotransmitters, tryptophan converting to serotonin, converting into melatonin, oxytocin support, all dopamine, like all of these hormones, GABA, everything that helps you as a woman calm down, feel good, anti-anxiety, antidepressive, happy hormones. There is a direct correlation to what is going on in the gut. So doing these things is so vital and so important. Your doctor won't give you testosterone. Then this is when you have to start to look online. So if you are in Canada, you can go on to felix.ca, which is an online resource. This is not free. You have to pay for it. You also have to understand in perimenopause and menopause, you need to have a budget for investing in your health. Because the healthcare you think you have for free is not going to get you through this stage. We don't have free healthcare. We have free emergency care. And this is what we have to understand. There's nothing free preventatively that is going to happen for us in 7 to 10 minutes in an insurance-based model. And so having a conversation, so in Canada, you can try felix.ca. In the US, you can use MIDI Health, My Alloy. Like they're moving at a faster pace in the US than they are in Canada. And this definitely comes down to the governmental bodies, okay? So let's talk about some of the things that we can be doing nutritionally that are really important, okay? So stabilizing blood sugar, making sure that you are eating enough. Most women, when we actually look at what they're eating, they're getting somewhere around, 1,000 to maybe 1,400 calories a day. It's not enough. And so, it's like to build muscle, to get your metabolic system to respond well, to support your thyroid and your hormone production. If you're not eating enough good quality food, if you have taken all the carbohydrates out of your diet because you believe that carbs are what are making you gain weight, we have to start to rehabilitate the diet. So nutritionally, making sure that when you are eating, you are having a good quality portion of fibrous carbohydrates. You are getting in a good source of protein that in each meal is generally somewhere around 30-ish grams, could be a little less and maybe a little bit more in the upwards of 40. You're getting in healthy fat from things that naturally have fat. So you're doing some good quality oils, or you're using avocado, or you're having like wild caught salmon that has the omega, healthy oils, or you're having like good quality bison or beef. You're getting it in that way. You have to be so careful that for a lot of women, the things you think are protein that you are adding to your day is actually additional fat. And if you're trying to lose fat, you really do need to be cognizant of it. Fat in and of itself is not going to make you fat. But if we're eating a lot of cheese in our meals, thinking that's our protein, we're constantly turning to, Greek yogurt, which for not every woman is going to respond well to having that amount of dairy in her system. We're always looking at nuts and seeds and nut butters and seed butters. These are very high calorically, they're very dense in fat, and they're actually all very low in protein, with the exception if you're bringing in something like some, organic Greek yogurt. So in your mind, you're looking at your meal and you're like, cheese, check, there's protein, nuts, protein, but really what it is fat. And so you could be coming short on your protein consumption and not balancing it out with the other right nutrients. So getting your nutrition really dialed in and trying to eat more foods that are whole foods, which the definition of that is like it's your produce, it's your animal and plant-based proteins, it's your good quality foods that the earth has provided us, right? Not from a box. And it's not that you're never going to have any of those foods, but they're just not going to make up the majority of your meals. You need to be hydrated. You need to get your minerals in, right? So everybody knows we need to be getting in the mineral magnesium. That is really critical, but you need other minerals. You need sodium and potassium, right? The amount of women who have the dizziness, the lightheaded, they can't get through the workouts, they have energy slumps in the afternoon, they can't start the day without coffee, they can't continue the day without coffee in the afternoon. I find if we give them a powder that has sodium and potassium in it, all of a sudden they're like, I am a brand new woman. So it could be something as simple as adding in a packet of LMNT, which is element, which is sodium, potassium, magnesium. It could be adding in rehydrate from within us. It could be using something like BioSteel. It could be using an electrolyte that you have found that has sodium, potassium, magnesium, those three core elements, maybe a touch of calcium in there to add into your water. Very simple. It's going to help you. Okay. Bringing in some kind of adaptogens for yourself right now, ladies. If you've never used adaptogens, this is the time in your 40s and 50s. So they could be mushroom based, which could be like lion's mane, super incredible for your cognitive function and your brain. Could be cordyceps for your energy. Cordyceps are nature's natural pre-workout, not caffeine, okay? Cordyceps. It could be reishi. If you are overstimulated, you are just vibrating through life. You literally don't know how to calm down and relax. And when you see other people relax, you get pissed. Like you like shame them. You're like, you're lazy. Must be nice to just lay around. I wish I could lie around. And that's where that's coming from, is this deep desire that you just wish that you could relax. Reishi is wonderful for that. Tulsi, which is holy basil. You can get this in a tea. You can also get this, supplemental form is very good. Those would be some of the main ones. And then we look at adaptogens to support the thyroid. Again, I don't know you and your health history, so you always want to go back to who you're working with. But if you've never explored ashwagandha, or, ashwagandha, it is my favorite outside of reishi. Those are my two favorite adaptogens, because ashwagandha is known as the great neutralizer. Okay. Meaning if you need to be picked up, it's going to help to nourish and pick you up, adrenal and thyroid wise. If you need to calm down and regulate, it's going to help you have that accessibility to be able to do that for yourself. And so ashwagandha is beautiful. Some women respond really well to rhodiola, to Allura, to Siberian ginseng, to, things like that, a little bit of licorice root as well. You will find when you go to your natural health food store and you look under like adrenal support or adaptogens, there's beautiful products that are combined. Now, you can also, like, I don't again know where all of you live to tell you everything to look for, but those are some of the main ingredients that you would be looking at. And this is something that if you are just fried, in an ideal scenario, you're going to work with somebody one-on-one to really understand what is going on. If you're coming into the next round of the Perimenopause project, which we can put the links in for you to join, you get a perimenopause menopause assessment with one of our functional health practitioners to really help dial in what is going on in your body right now. So we do a health timeline intake, and to give you like the top 2 to 3 things that you really should be focusing on right now. We can't do more than that. You can't be trying to do a 5-point, 10-point, 12-point plan all at one time for your body. If you can try to dial things in and do 1, 2, maximum of 3 new habits at a time until you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. This is my new normal. That is going to be so much easier for you to then integrate yourself into that next level of healing. Your B vitamins, your B vitamins and magnesium, ladies, you just blow through these. Like the body being under any level of stress, every process that has to happen in the day, you are wiping through these. So either a good quality B complex. I would say of all the Bs, the ones that I notice women be the most depleted in are B12 and B6, followed by B1 and B2. B6 can be incredible if you are noticing the increased PMS, you cannot sleep, you are noticing that you are just like energy-wise and mood-wise not having it. B6 is beautiful for that. Your vitamin D, most products now are made really well, right? They are, fat soluble. So they've got your vitamin, D3 and K2, and they're in an emulsion, which means they're in like a liquid form. And that's really important because you don't want to take a vitamin D tablet or a pill because vitamin D is fat soluble. We need to have it in the presence of fat for the body to be able to actually utilize it. Vitamin D and magnesium work beautifully together because they help the absorption and the use of one another. So you don't have to take vitamin D and magnesium together. You could take your vitamin D in the morning and then your magnesium later in the day. But what's important is that you are getting it in. Omega, some of you are asking, can be very helpful as well. And creatine, yes, the amount of research coming out about creatine, I mean, it's so interesting because I've been using creatine since I was like 16, 17 in the gym with my dad on and off, and went through, bouts where I didn't use it at all and have been using it regularly again for probably the last 10 years. And creatine is fantastic to support your workouts, right? To help, recovery and performance and building muscle, but it's incredible for your brain health. It is incredible for reducing oxidative stress. Like it's a really powerful product that we can bring into our bodies. When you're buying it, your product should say creatine. Like that's it. No sugar, no fillers, nothing like that. Collagen, some of you are asking about. Yeah, here's the thing I would say is I love collagen. I use it all the time. I find some women who have histamine issues, they don't do as well with collagen all the time or bone broth all the time. So they have to work on healing that part of the gut that's being super reactive and then slowly start to bring that back in. I alternate between a bovine and marine. So I was using bovine for a really long time. And then I discovered a new company where the marine-based collagen was super clean, ethically sourced. I only needed 5 grams to get the same bioavailability that I was having to get 10 grams out of my bovine. And I have mine with my matcha. So now I'm having a less gritty, powdery experience, and I like that. The other thing I would say here, if you're thinking about supplements, would be that gut support and liver support. So, back in the day, I just used to say general probiotic, like just take a probiotic, doesn't matter when, doesn't matter what, and you'll be fine. There's just so much more research and data that we have now showing that to be as specific as possible is wonderful. So, when we run stool tests, we can actually see the strains of probiotics that would be best. So for instance, when we run these stool tests, the ViTrac test, inside the Perimenopause project, we have ladies stop taking probiotics for 2 weeks before, especially for the study coming up that we're doing. So we're not taking probiotics 2 weeks before. And then we test the poop and we can actually see in your body what strains need to be supported and what strains are doing great. And then we can make a recommendation that's more tailored to your individual ecosystem, your individual gut microbiome. We can see things like butyrate, right? If you've been told that you have IBS or you have leaky gut or you have SIBO, you have all these different, GI issues going on, we can actually see would giving you some butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid, help to heal and seal up the lining of your gut faster and decrease a lot of the symptoms that you are having. Okay. And then liver support. I love St. Francis Herb Farm. They have a beautiful tincture called Hepato DR, and that works beautifully at supporting, everything that we've talked about. When you support the liver, you support the gut. When you support the gut, you support the liver. And these are our main detoxification pathways. When we talk about, some of you are asking how much fiber to get in general, it's going to be about 25 grams. I will tell you, because I do a lot of macro analysis, most women are averaging about 12 to 15 grams of fiber in a day. And one of the reasons it's so low is women have stopped eating beans. They have stopped eating plant-based carbohydrates. They, are really trying to just and I get it because you're being yelled at all the time. Eat your protein, get your steps in, drink this, do that. And you're like, oh my God, how do I get through the day? But allow yourself to start to embrace bringing those carbohydrates back in, the fibrous sources, and you might have to use a powder. So you might have to add a powdered fiber into your smoothie or, into your, yogurt, whether it's your dairy yogurt or coconut yogurt that you're having. Really work on decreasing your sugar. We all know this. I don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but it definitely will, make an impact. If you have a sweet tooth, start to choose to just have a small little square of dark chocolate, if you need that, because it just feels good for you. Yeah, when you're talking about increasing protein, so here's my thing on this, ladies, is that if you go from 0 to 100, you're going to be gassy and you're going to probably feel constipated and not feel good. So gradually start to increase your protein intake. So if you've maybe only been getting in 60 or 70 grams, could you start this week by getting in an extra 20 grams a day? That's like a scoop of a protein powder. That is a few ounces of chicken, right? That's a half a cup of, good quality cottage cheese. There's your 20 grams right there, and start to do that. You could take some digestive enzymes that will help your body do a better job at breaking down. If you don't have a gallbladder, digestive enzymes are very important for you because you've lost a key organ that was helping to regulate how you break down the food that you are consuming. You could also do simple things that you probably have at home so you don't have to spend more money, which is like a half a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and a little bit of water, and you can drink that. How much do I eat? So I eat about 150 grams of protein a day. I'm also exercising about 5 times a week. I'm teaching classes, I'm lifting weights. I also didn't start this yesterday. I've been doing this for a very long time. Yeah, and for me, for my body, I eat around 2,000 calories a day. And that is because my goal is I want to be strong. I want to be able to feel power in my body. I want to sleep well. I want to keep my hormones stable. And, that is what my body actually requires. In terms of exercise, here's the thing I would say in the beginning. What is something that you can commit to doing consistently? So don't worry about measuring, how many days of weights and how many days of yoga. Can you just start to move your body each day and in a way where you actually enjoy it, you look forward to it? So if it's walking, if it's swimming, if it's like, what is it that you love that's not wearing and tearing you down? So if you're like, I love high intensity classes 5 days a week, I will be like, I don't know about that. Can we do 3 days a week of that and then shift it? And here, listen, I am all for, I love classes for community. I love it that you get to show up and just the instructor tells you what to do. Love it for the music, love how it feels in the moment. But, and here's the but, if after your class you are exhausted, you need a nap, You feel like you're coming down to something. You are sore all the time. Your appetite is all over the place and you never truly feel satiated and your sleep is not going well and you're noticing more inflammation show up. I'm strongly going to encourage that you reevaluate your relationship with the way that you have been exercising. I've had to do this multiple times in my life. And in the beginning, I would always resist it. And then it just felt 10 times harder. And when I stopped resisting it and I was like, I'm just going to listen to my body. I'm going to train according to where my body is at. This is how I created Synced. My body feels so frigging good. And it's because I build cross training in. I'm not mean to my body. I really just show up each day and I'm like, all right, lady, what do you feel like today? What do you got in the tank? And then I adjust based on how I feel when I do that. Okay. Yeah, reducing your stress, here's the thing. It's like very ineffective when you just say to someone, you need to de-stress. Like, what does that even mean? This is where it's like you have to ask yourself, what are the things that are causing you the most stress in your life? Is it your job? Is it your family? Is it your kids are going through something? Is it your relationship? Is it finances? Is it like you can't quite actually put your finger on it? You look around and you're like, I don't know why I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling mad or unfulfilled because I have a great partner. I have healthy, great kids. I've got an awesome dog. I've got a roof over my head, but I feel flat. That is when you want to have a conversation with someone about that. My thoughts on protein shakes, I love them, but protein powder is processed. We all know this, right? Like that didn't grow from the ground. Some of the ingredients in it did. I use protein powders daily because it's very hard for me. I don't want to eat, 400 grams of chicken every day. Ugh, that's a lot of chewing. Protein powders are convenient, they're easy. Here's the thing with your protein powder. Everyone's going to be different. I have had every company under the sun reach out. I do not digest whey. I don't care how they filtered it. I have tried it. My body doesn't like it. If you are gassy, burpy, bloated, after, you don't digest it well. I do okay with beef-based protein powder, okay? And I do great with plant-based. And so it's just like figuring out what works for you. Is there any benefit to consuming Within Us Rehydrate and Bloom Super Belly the same day? Sure. It's not going to hurt you, right? It's not going to hurt you at all. Um, I've heard that perimenopausal women can benefit from a prenatal vitamin. I can see why they would say that because it's like a multi and there's going to be some additional nutrients. I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to that. I would just say if you were going to do that, make sure it's a really good quality prenatal and not from Centrum or Jameson, and it's not Materna. That would be my advice on that. Um, what would I recommend for gluteal tendinopathy? I would recommend working with a really good quality osteopath or chiro. I would recommend strengthening the muscles of your glutes and your legs. I'm not going to, omegas and turmeric could be things that maybe would help with that, but you would need to work with somebody one-on-one. Now, you may also notice that if you bring in some hormone, replacement therapy, and you've got it in that good conjunction of estrogen and progesterone, that reduces your inflammatory response overall. L-theanine is beautiful for sleep. One of my favorite products that I have that I actually have next to the bed in my drawer is called Tranquil Sleep. It's super inexpensive. And I'm going to tell you a little something. There's a product from Bioclinical, and then there's a product from Tranquil Sleep. They're literally the same product, and they have a small amount of melatonin. They have L-theanine and 5-HTP, and they are beautiful for sleep. Chew 2 of those about a half an hour before bed, and they're wonderful. Okay. Turmeric is anti-inflammatory. That's what turmeric is wonderful for. Very anti-inflammatory in the body for that. The best way to check on your blood sugar is to wear a continuous glucose monitor. The most inexpensive place to purchase that is the pharmacy at Costco. You're going to spend about $90. Very easy to use and do. You're going to get 2 weeks out of a monitor. It has an app that's connected to your phone, and you literally would scan the glucose monitor that's in the arm, and it's measuring your glucose management all day throughout the day. It'll graph the whole thing for you and chart it. It's awesome. How do you take a stool test? So the stool test that we use inside the Perimenopause project, which is called ViTract, is different than one of the ones that we also do use called the GI map. GI map, you have to poop into a container. ViTract, you do not. You have your regular bowel movement, you wipe, and you have like a a cotton swab that you pull through the toilet paper from where you have wiped. Some people may not use the toilet paper. You can actually just swab the lower rectum with that, and you get the sample. It goes back in the vial and it gets sent off. So you will do that at the beginning of the perimenopause project, and then it's 8 weeks live. You go through the whole program with me, and then we run your second test 8 weeks later. And the reason why this is so important is that it takes women a few weeks to start to make changes. So if we had you do test 1 on day 1 and then test 2 8 weeks later, you probably only started to make some of the changes maybe like 5 or 6 weeks ago. It's not enough time to actually test and see the differences in your gut microbiome. Okay. So that's really important as well too. So if you are interested in doing that, when you join the Perimenopause Project right now, you do not pay for the test and you don't pay for the assessment. The regular price for the program is $24.97, and right now it's $17.97. We are only taking 40 women in this study. We're looking for 30 that are omnivore and 10% who would consider themselves to be more plant-based. Okay, so if you go to the link, Christine's posted it a few times and we'll send it in the recording as well. You can read all of this info there. But that's a limited time offer. So it's that $700 off. Like, I'm paying for the test to the lab. I'm working with the doctor to track all of those results. You're surveyed. And so for some women, what this does is it increases your accountability because you're like, I'm part of a study. I need to do the things. All right, you can be on it. The vaginal hyaluronic, I would say the company I love the best is called Feels Amazing. And it is by, well, the product is called Feels Amazing. It's by a company called Pure Pharmacy. They're actually based out of BC. And it's just like a pea-sized drop that you would insert. If you're in the US, Dr. Anna Kabeka, the girlfriend doctor, fantastic products, okay? The best way to reduce overall inflammation in the body is begin with your gut and your lymphatic system. So it's working on digestion, understanding what is going on in your gut microbiome, and then it is supporting your lymph. So I've done a podcast episode a few weeks ago that I would recommend you listen to, all about your lymphatic system. And I have a video on YouTube showing you how to stimulate your lymph. Ladies, if you are congested and your body does not have the ability to be able to release and to let go, this is a big one. And then for inflammation, the other thing is that how inflammatory is your lifestyle? So if you are eating a lot of processed foods, if you are drinking a lot of alcohol, if you vape, if you smoke, if you like all these things we know aren't healthy for our body, that is going to increase inflammation. Okay. Why someone would consider DHEA. DHEA is the primary steroid hormone that is being produced in your adrenal glands, that is the precursor hormone to you producing things like testosterone and estrogen, and testosterone converting into estrogen and supporting our ovarian function. So what I will see in women's test results, because we test this all the time, and this I would either do in 24-hour urine collection, or I would do it in a dried urine collection in Dutch and look at their blood work, is recognize and see that their total DHEA production and sulfation is low. So when you see a woman where her cortisol production has tanked, you'll also see that typically her adrenal production of DHEA has tanked. If you try to do the lifestyle things and you try to bring in herbs and supplements to support, and the adrenals are just at that point where they are not responding to the adaptogens, and she needs a little extra oomph because she is dragging herself through life, DHEA is wonderful to bring that back on board, okay? For that, how can you quit coffee? You have to make a decision and replace it with something. Like if it's the caffeine you're going for, choose something like matcha. Matcha is rich in anti-carcinogenic. Matcha is one of the ones that has been proven to be anti-cancer. It is loaded and it's rich in L-theanine. So it's supporting your mood. It's supporting your emotion. I share how I make my matcha online all the time. It's wonderful. I've had 3 UTIs in separate occasions, but I went to the doctor. It said no UTI. It probably wasn't necessarily triggered by stress, but it could have been triggered by there's something happening in the vaginal microbiome, right? So it could be dryness. It could be certain, underwear products that you're wearing that are, off-gassing. If we're using natural or not natural, like Always and Tampax and a lot of these products that have bleaches and dioxins in the tampons and on the pads, that can impact your vaginal microbiome if you're using anything scented in that area. If you're over soaping and over scrubbing, this always blows women's minds when I teach this class. In TPP, is that you don't need to be soaping and sudsing your vaginal area. In fact, you are not supposed to. You are supposed to just like lukewarm water in that area, right? You just need to wash your underarms essentially with a little bit of soap. But we live in this antibacterial world where we think if we scrub, it's going to be better, and it's oftentimes not for that. Um, mm, mm, mm. Is it possible to lose the belly weight? It is, but again, it's like crunches aren't going to do that. Just lifting heavy isn't going to do it. Building more muscle will help because muscle is metabolically active tissue, right? So the more muscle you have on your body, then when you have that, this is going to help to support metabolic function. It's going to make you more insulin sensitive, okay? It's going to sop up that insulin in the body, and it is going to give you more room to actually eat more of the food that you enjoy. But the other thing with belly fat is really understanding what's going on with that insulin and glucose. Potentially hormone replacement therapy can help with that as well. But we can't just do things like crunches or things that are targeting the waist. It's like, why are we in this predisposition where we're holding on to extra padding around that area? You got to look at cortisol, insulin, sex hormones, leptin, and ghrelin. Okay. Would castor oil packs over the liver help? Always. Castor oil is the bomb. Is it safe to take tranquil sleep with the magnesium? Sure is. Do it all the time. Magnesium, how much does everyone need? Really depends. For most women I work with that are in their 40s and 50s, I generally have them taking no less than 400 milligrams in the upwards of 800 milligrams. There's many different forms of magnesium. I find bisglycinate to be one of the easiest to uptake and absorb, which means like we want to take what it is that we're consuming that we can break down. But sometimes we're using a citrate, sometimes we're using a threonate, sometimes we're using a combination. So it does depend on the individual. If you're not sure exactly, I would just say your safest bet is stay with a magnesium bisglycinate. We do not take insurance at all for the project. You can get your receipt and you can go and you can submit it to your provider and see if they cover it. But it doesn't work that way. You would actually have to like be working with a regulated practitioner in some one-to-one capacity where there's that type of relationship happening. So we don't accept insurance for that, but we give you a receipt and you could submit it. What do you say to doctors when they say you're not in perimenopause yet you still have a period? Well, so here's the thing. Perimenopause is really, it comes down to symptoms. And so what it seems like your doctor might be saying is that you're not menopausal because you have a period. So what you need to do is be working with a practitioner who understands that it is the symptom picture of how you are feeling and what it is going on in your body. And that's where we have the opportunity to be preventative and to get in front of it. Like none of us are going to avoid perimenopause and menopause. Some of us are going to move through it with a little bit more ease, and some of us are not. And this is the place where we want to have practitioners who can support that. So you have to remember, I know it's hard because we feel like we're asking our practitioners permission. What we really are asking them is, can you please work with me? Like I want to work together on this. I'm trying to explain to you how I'm feeling and what is going on. And you know what? Some doctors are really open if you take them actual research papers, which you can find on PubMed. Anybody can go onto pubmed.com and look up information and print that off and bring in those citations to your doctor. I've read women with a history of endometriosis should be on daily progesterone, yet I do understand the benefits of cycling. I can't really say 100% on that, Jessica. I myself have not been taught or told that for every woman with a diagnosis of endometriosis, that automatically she is on daily progesterone. Again, that would be a conversation to have. And there are some people in the industry who they may be teaching that, but you could go and listen to someone else in the industry who is not teaching that. So cyclical hormones, I would say probably the best person to learn and understand this from is Dr. Felice Gersh. Okay, she is in her 70s. She is still practicing. She is incredible. Is that what this would mean is that if you like, okay, so I cycle my progesterone. I still get a period every single month. I take my progesterone from around day 12 to day 26. Okay. When my period starts, I stop taking the progesterone. Okay. And then I don't take it again until day 12. That is cycling it. If I was doing estrogen, estrogen you take every day. You don't cycle estrogen. Estrogen you would be on continuously. The progesterone is oftentimes what gets cycled. Now, is that the way everyone should be doing it? No. If you have women where you start them cycling on progesterone and they say, oh my gosh, my anxiety and my mood feel so much better. My sleep is better. I feel better overall. Progesterone can also help with hot flashes, the night sweats, the waking in the middle of the night. And so if you have a woman who says that, and then she says to you, I feel so good in the 2 weeks when I'm on my progesterone, but when I come off of it, I'm back to not sleeping well. I'm back to not feeling good. That is a great case for a physician to say, you know what? Let's keep you on the progesterone throughout the month. Now, what they might do is, let's say if you're taking 100 milligrams in the second half of your cycles, they might say, why don't we just give you 50 milligrams? Why don't we try 50 milligrams in the first half? And some women need more. Like, ladies, again, I'm talking to you about very generic amounts right now because I don't know what everybody would need. Even your own practitioner, when you start working with them, this is a trial and error of what your body needs. So I have some women who their practitioner has them on 300 and 400 milligrams of progesterone, and that's what they needed to feel exceptionally well. So just know that there's no one amount. How could there possibly be one standardized amount, one standardized way? None of us are the same. Do I align with Dr. Mindy Pels? I've actually interviewed Mindy on the podcast. I have her coming back on again in a couple months. I love Mindy. I love her work. I don't think everyone needs to be fasting. Listen, if you have a cycle that's still happening right now and you can figure out your feasting time, your before period time of when you would be doing longer fast versus shorter fast, and it feels good for your body, then to me it sounds like you have found something that works for you. If you're a woman where you're just at a state where you're like, there is so much in fluctuation, is fasting longer going to be the best route for everyone? Probably not. Clinically, I don't see it. I see, and I'm just going to be honest because you've asked the question, a lot of, back this up. Every woman who's come into the Perimenopause Project who's been fasting for a long time, we actually have to kind of unwind and reteach her system, and we start to shift her, eating windows, and energy comes back, sleep is improved, and feels better. Now, again, that's just the kind of women that I'm attracting. It doesn't mean it's absolute for everyone. For things like that. In terms of resources, Jen, I mean, you can just be, listening to those who are teaching about it online. I don't have like a tangible resource that I can send you or give you about that it's your LDL cholesterol. So you have your low density lipoproteins, your HDL, which is your high density lipoproteins, and then your triglycerides. And so typically when we're seeing somebody who has elevated triglycerides or elevated HDL or LDL, I mean, the LDL is the one that we are watching for. And the triglycerides changing is that we need to ask bigger questions about, okay, first of all, what's going on with your diet? What's going on in your lifestyle? Are you drinking? Like all those factors we need to know and understand. And then we've got to look at liver health, right? And understanding like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is on the rise in women. Non-alcoholic, this means in women who are not drinking or who are not drinking in excess. Okay, so important to understand that. Now, I just want to pause for a moment because we've gone for 100 minutes. Congratulations. Okay, 100 minutes. And I do know that not everybody is necessarily going to stay on for the rest of the Q&A period of time. So I do want to just pause and say thank you for joining. I also want to create an official invite to you to come into the Perimenopause Project, which starts on February 12th. And be part of the study if you're so inclined. Now, there is a form in there when you go to the link that will let you know if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. You can't be part of the study. If you are in active cancer treatment, you can't be part of the study. You can be part of the program, but with these studies, they have controlled groups. And so there has to be fewer variables in order for them to be able to track these statistical results and abstracts. So the link is posted here in the live chat. We will also send it out to you. I never take it lightly when women show up and carve out time to be here and to learn. I hope you have learned something new or you've been reminded about something old and that you've got a new little pep in your step about taking care of your body at this time of your life, because it is one of the most powerful times of our life. And we can actually step into our greatest health and definitely our most abundant wisdom as women. I believe that through and through. I am going to stay on and answer some different questions. You are so welcome. You are so welcome. So I'm going to scroll back up here and take a peek at some of these. That is very outdated information that progesterone and estrogen are linked to breast cancer. That would be somebody who only studied and looked into the 2001 Women's Health Initiative study that was run, that has been since in the last few years ripped apart, debunked, completely untrue. And there are so many that are teaching about this. A book that I would read if you have any concerns about this. Well, first of all, it's just following certain people online. Like if you're following Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Kelly Casperson, Dr. Corinne Men, you've read Estrogen Matters. I think every woman needs to read the book Estrogen Matters. The most updated version was just released a couple of months ago, and it completely debunks everything that happened in the Women's Health Initiative. You have got to understand that there is a very slow transition in the medical world, and majority of healthcare providers, doctors, including OBGs, received zero training on not just, perimenopause, but menopause as a whole. And so I understand it's frustrating. It's also a little bit scary when the very people that we're going to for the support do not have the actual training. And it's going to take time for that to change over, which is why you being more educated, accessing, reliable sources, reading the information is really important. I get hormonal migraines and have been taking feverfew, CoQ10. I cannot say. So I would talk to, I mean, if you've been doing that for a few years now and that's not making any difference, then I would, sit down and speak with somebody to see is there a different way. And I don't know if this is something that you would have to continue. I would say probably not for the rest of your life. But again, this could be a conversation around maybe it's time to explore some other things. Like the question here would be, why are you getting the headaches? So, it's like if minerals was the issue, which is where the magnesium can help. Feverfew is like a botanical form of ibuprofen, of Tylenol. It's like using arnica, which is like homeopathic ibuprofen. So there's a lot of like homeopathy is our family's apothecary. Anything happens, the first thing we turn to, it's actually not supplements, it is homeopathic medicine. We have worked with multiple classical homeopaths for the last 22 years as a family. And so there are other things that you could be exploring and looking into. Acupuncture is wonderful. Chinese medicine is beautiful for it. And you may need some hormone therapy. Here's the thing we have to remember. Yes, as women, we're all going to go through these stages, and it's a natural process in our life. Women are living longer than they ever have before. So much of the research happening on women has only been happening in the last 40 to 100 years, which means we do not have enough clinical data to be able to understand, what women as a whole need. And that is what is starting to happen right now. We are seeing, the incidence of certain diseases and ailments in women start to decrease with the efficacious use of things like hormone therapy. With food sensitivities, does that apply to gluten, dairy, and eggs? For sure, but it could be anything. It's like you could be like, all of a sudden, I cannot eat tomatoes. I cannot have melon anymore, right? Gluten, dairy, and eggs tend to be the more common because it's things everyone eat. If you look at your day, I guarantee you in your day, you are eating some form of dairy, something with eggs, and something with gluten. Okay. You are so welcome. Losing weight could be related in any way to perimenopause. Yes, it can. If you're noticing rapid weight loss, right, this could be connected to your thyroid. 100% I'd be getting the thyroid checked out. If you're unexplainably losing weight, I know we oftentimes always talk about the weight gain, but if you're losing weight for no reason, I would book an appointment. I would do a full blood workup. I would take a look at what is happening with the thyroid and the parathyroid gland. I would address what's going on with the nervous system and the adrenals, because potentially this could be something autoimmune. Okay. You are so welcome. How would you change fatty liver disease? You would start to address supporting the liver, the gut, and your butt. That's how it works. Optimize the gut health, do things to help to naturally detox the liver, bring in more bitters. So think, dandelion, milk thistle, arugula, those kind of things. You can use liver tinctures, castor oil packs on the liver, support your lymph system, avoid processed foods. There's so much that we can be doing. This is like something I'm going to say, and I'm like, there could be a whole nother class on this, which I will probably be doing a detoxification masterclass in March or April. Um, One of the most incredible things to support liver health, which is, and in getting glutathione into the body, is by doing coffee enemas. I do these a couple of times a week, and they can be fantastic at helping to speed up liver health. So we think like an enema is just to support, the back end and to get poop moving, but it's actually to help to support liver health as well. There's a lot that we can be doing that, if unfortunately in Western medicine, we're just not being taught. We are made to be afraid of everything that we shouldn't be afraid of. Like it's weird to talk about a coffee enema, but it's not weird to take, Restoralax for people's life. It's weird to talk about doing hydrocolon therapy, but it's not weird to be on a PPI. It's weird to talk about using bioidentical hormones, but it's not weird to have women in their 40s and 50s with IUDs in there and being on the birth control pill. It's weird to talk about using homeopathy for a headache, but it's not weird to take the maximum amount of Advil every day. Like we've just been, and when you hear someone say it in that way, you're like, yeah, but we have been taught and essentially brainwashed that, like, you doing anything that's going to support your body's natural process, weird, woo woo, no data to support it. I'm sorry, but not everything needs data. How about the human sitting in front of you? We do not need a research paper and scientific data to understand when you ask somebody, can you try doing this and let's see how you feel? And they go, oh my God, I feel so much better. Do you think what I need is to go, well, now hold on. I'm going to have to go send that off. I'm going to need a scientist to go and validate that before I can believe that you actually feel better and that that change actually, really did help you. Fuck that. No, you don't. Your body is brilliant. You're a woman, you're a superhero, okay? And you don't live life like a superhero where you just go out there and be a baller. You have intuitive powers. You know when something is working in your body and you know when it is not. You have to start to listen to that. Yes, Pete, you can stay on hormone therapy, for a very long time. I would say that most of my mentors that I have learned from do not recommend only taking hormone replacement therapy until you get to menopause and then stop, because you're going to live in a postmenopausal state for the rest of your life. And you don't just cross the finish line where you don't have a period anymore and then go, oh, I am done here. I don't need any more support. Oftentimes women will have those symptoms will continue on for, a decade or longer. And again, we're not just trying to do something that's supporting a period that doesn't exist anymore. This is now about taking care of your brain, your breast, your bones, your heart, your vagina, your body as a whole. Okay. It's very, very important. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Oh, yay. I cannot wait to see you in the program. Is it safe to take Ducalox as needed to keep your bowels moving? Definitely not long term. There are other things that you could be using. And if that is something that you are dependent upon, I would definitely work with somebody one-to-one on that, because that would not be the route that I would want to go. It is going to bind up to so many of your nutrients that you're consuming as well. And it's not something we would want to be using long-term. Luciana, the link has been posted. You can also just go to jennpike.com/the perimenopause project. Would it be good for women who are not necessarily in peri right now, but want to ensure a good transition? Absolutely, 100%. This is the third time I will be running this, and we have had women from as young as 35 into their early 60s coming into this. So 100%. A DIY electrolyte mix. Honestly, you can just go onto YouTube for this. It would be like orange juice, coconut water, some cream of tartar, a little bit of good quality sea salt. That's going to, like, bada bing, bada boom, hit all your mixes. Someone asked about bioidentical vaginal estrogen. Bioidentical vaginal estrogen cream is that. So yes, they are still prescribing Premarin, which is from, pregnant horse maren. You want to go to bioidentical vaginal progesterone. You work with your practitioner. It's done at a compounding pharmacy, and you would insert this vaginally. Very safe. very safe. Again, obviously, have a conversation with your practitioner and what's gone on with your health history. But I will tell you that majority of my teachers that I am learning from, and doctors and physicians, I mean, they're even using vaginal estrogen in the women who are going through active chemotherapy and who are on estrogen blockers, and they are so dry now, and they have been put into surgical or chemical menopause from the medications and from those interventions, and they are using vaginal estrogen. Weight gain of over 50 pounds in the last year and a half, only just turned 40. There could be a lot of factors, right? A lot of different things happening in there and going on. I can't quite, I mean, everything I've talked about tonight in terms of like dialing in your nutrition, getting your movement on point, optimizing sleep, giving yourself time. If I was working with somebody to support a 50-pound weight loss and that was your goal, I would say we're going to work together for the next 12 to 18 months. We're going to work together for the next year to year and a half to really, figure out, how this happened and what we need to support. If you sign up for the project, is there an option to continue seeing somebody in your practice after? 100% there is. I closed down the public clinic, but we still have practitioners that support behind the scenes inside of our program. You are very welcome. Is the 60-minute one-on-one still available? Yes. Yep, for the first 40 women that come up. It's not like the first 40 women, we're only taking 40 women. I have like a capacity at what I can manage. I'm teaching you live every week. I'm very engaged in the Facebook community. We have our practitioner, Stephanie, who is supporting these women. And we just want to make sure that we're not taking so many women. We can't manage your questions. We can't manage that level of support. There's definitely going to be a replay of this. Do you have matcha immediately after you wake up? No, I don't. So typically for me, I wake up, I have water next to my bed every night. I wake up and I start to drink water. I probably would say I drink about a cup worth of water, maybe like 2 cups worth in that transition of going into the bathroom, doing my bathroom stuff. I take the dog downstairs. 3 mornings a week, I head into the basement to teach synced. So most mornings I'm not having my matcha. I wake up generally around 6. I'm not having my matcha until generally around like 7:30. And some days, like if I wake up and I feel a little kind of anxious and kind of off, I will move my matcha after I've eaten. Like there's just some days where I'm like, I need to eat first before I go and have my matcha. Yeah. What are first steps in experiencing frozen shoulder or plantar fasciitis? The first thing, actually, again, get an awesome body working practitioner. So I love an osteopath for these types of things. And to do some soft tissue work like yoga tune-up balls, and then bring in some anti-inflammatory, right? Some omega, some turmeric. And then if you are in that range where you're also noticing you have low estrogen symptoms, like you've got the vaginal dryness, you have the night sweats, you've got the brain fog, you've got the, lack of memory, you've got the fatigue, you have a lot of those symptoms, and this is where you'd want to also have a discussion about bringing in some bioidentical estrogen. Generally, most practitioners nowadays are going to do either a patch or going to do a click gel that you would be utilizing, and talking about progesterone as well too. Okay, last couple of ones here. What would natural things do to help with constipation? Well, you've got to try and determine why are you constipated. If you've been constipated your whole life, that's a bigger thing as to what's going on. There could be H. pylori. You could have parasites. I see it all the friggin' time. You could have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, reduced stomach acid, not enough digestive enzymes. So it's looking at those things. So you could bring a digestive enzyme in. You could make sure that you are stimulating motility. When you have a bowel movement, make sure you're using a little squatty potty or a little bench so that your knees are actually higher than your navel. You actually have to push fecal matter up, across, and down. Have more warming foods versus raw food. So if you tend to always go with raw veggies and raw salads and cold smoothies all the time, start to do soup, start to do sauteed, roasted veggies, have more warming fluids, have herbal teas. You can get like smooth move tea. You can use slippery elm, ginger, peppermint, chamomile, all fennel, everything that's very relaxing to the body. And you can bring magnesium in to help. And then you also could, if you are very impacted, look into working with a hydrocolon therapist in your community who can help you to get some of that back up going. Progesterone is also very helpful with motility. When we start to have less ovulation, we stop ovulating, We don't have that rich source of progesterone anymore. This can definitely contribute to a slowing down of healthy bowel movements and constipation. And psyllium, okay, let me back this up. Psyllium would be like my third. Ground flax. Add a couple tablespoons of ground flax in daily. Chia is wonderful because it's very, coating. If somebody didn't have a gallbladder, I would be making sure that their enzyme had some bile and some pancreatin. And depending on that, I also will use something called TUDCA, which is TUDCA. And this helps the livers producing the bile. Your gallbladder is storing it and then squirting the bile out to help you digest and break down your carbs, your fats, and your protein. And a lot of people are like, I had to start to use TUDCA around 43. And not because I was noticing a difference in the bowels. I started to get rosacea. I started to get this patch, and like, knock on wood right now. Because as soon as I go, my skin looks great, I'll wake up and I have a bump. And I'm like, mother. And it's one of those things that, bringing in TUDCA to support the liver and gallbladder has definitely made a difference for that. Supplements that I take before bed. So magnesium is not a sedative, it's a relaxing mineral, but it can be wonderful. Now, some people get stimulated. My mom cannot take magnesium at night. My son, not magnesium at night. He needs to take it earlier in the day. Same with my mom. So I will give it to her like around lunch. Doesn't make her sleepy, but it does help her sleep later in the evening. So magnesium. Generally speaking, 400 milligrams is great to start with. If you get a lot of leg cramps, you have calf cramps, your toes are cramping in the night, you're restless, bump it up to about 600 milligrams. You don't need to take like an obscene amount of it, but enough where it's like your body's getting it. If sleep is really the struggle, there's a really good magnesium product I love by a company that's called CanPrev, okay, like Canadian Prevention, CanPrev. And it is magnesium with B6. Remember, I was talking about B6 with taurine, which can support sleep, and zinc. So it's a combination. And I use this quite a lot with the women inside the Perimenopause Project who are really struggling with sleep. And they might even be on progesterone and they're like, it helped, but I'm still really struggling. I'll use that magnesium with them. And then the other thing is you could use that tranquil sleep product I talked about, and it's called, the company is Natural Factors. It's very inexpensive, and it's called Tranquil Sleep. And you can try that. You've developed a large fibroid in the last few years, how to manage that naturally. So again, it would be your gut health. I would run a stool test for sure to see what's going on. I'd want to see if you had something elevated called beta glucuronidase, which is in the estrobolome. Because if it's high, then there's things we may use, like some sulforaphane, which is from broccoli extract, some indole 3-carbinol, maybe some DIM. We would definitely be supporting your liver. You can do things like castor oil over the uterus and over the liver to support. And things that are anti-inflammatory. So if you have a fibroid, which 80% of women will end up with a fibroid at some point in their life, which is why I said for those women who have the very heavy periods, they've got lots of spotting, they have painful intercourse. If this is something that continues to go on over a few months, you don't just ignore that and go, oh, I'm perimenopausal. You go get it checked out to rule out things like a fibroid because they can bleed. And that's what can be contributing to it. So I would recommend to start with doing some of those things. Would hormonal rosacea be a liver issue? 100% it's connected to liver, gallbladder, gut. In my experience as well too, it was like really looking at what was happening on a high level of the gut. So when you run stool tests, you can see if you carry certain bacteria in the body, overgrowth or not enough, certain viral, components, parasites in the system. When the skin is overreacting, and listen, if you said to me, I've got a lot of skin issues, but Jen, I drink a ton of sugar, ton of coffee, I have gluten and dairy every single day, and I'd be like, okay. We don't need to go run a stool test right now. You need to clean up your diet. Yeah, you have to clean up what it is you're eating. Now, if you say to me, I don't feel like I could eat any healthier. I'm drinking all the water. I'm doing everything. And my skin is just so unhappy. We're going to look at liver health. We're going to look at your gut health. We're going to look at parasites. Like those are almost always the three connections that happen. Okay, ladies, I'm going to answer one more question because we are 6:01, which means it's almost tomorrow, and I need to go back to another arena with my son. Oh, you are so welcome. So welcome. If sleep continues to be an issue even after progesterone and estrogen, does the dose need to be experimented with? Let me tell you something. The dose you start on will not be the dose you stay on. Your body's going to change, your dosing is going to change. So if you started at the beginning and you felt great, first thing first, Kel, is your blood sugar stable? Are you doing a good wind down routine at night? Are you, wearing the blue blockers and getting the bright light out like I have my eyeballs right now, out of the way? Are you doing all of those things? Are you getting your minerals? If the answer is yes, yes, and yes, then you want to go back and talk about your dosing. You are so welcome. If you do have fibroids, do you recommend having them removed? I recommend doing a lot of the things that I just talked about, and depending on the size of it, the placement of it, how much it is impacting your life, and what is going on, then yes, I would be having a conversation with your practitioner about what that would look like. Now, here's my thing. Going and removing things that grow in our body does not cure it. We take the issue away, but the question is still, why did I get it? Why is my body having a difficult time when we have fibroids and cyst and polyps, there is a detoxification, a lymphatic issue that's going on. You made 3.5 pages of notes. I love that, Sandy. That's amazing. If you're getting frequent urination with no UTIs or fibroids entering perimenopause, the vaginal estrogen can make a big difference for that, as well as working with a pelvic floor physiotherapist. And actually, when there's a lot of urination, we think we're weak in the pelvic floor. Oftentimes, we are so tight, and that's why we are frequently urinating. So working with a pelvic floor physiotherapist in conjunction with vaginal estrogen would be a great one for that. You are so, so welcome. Thanks for hanging with me for this whole time. Would I create a course for practitioners? Andrea, it already exists. I've been teaching it for a few years. It's called the Hormone Project Academy, and we go deep into this stuff every single week. And so I support and mentor coaches. I also teach them how to build really successful businesses. So that is called the Hormone Project Academy. So ladies, thank you. Thank you. I am looking forward to continuing to work with so many of you. And if it's not in the Perimenopause Project, hopefully you'll be tapping into another masterclass or into the podcast. Any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. You can email hello@jennpike.com, or you can also send me a little message on Instagram. Have an amazing rest of your night, everyone. Take care. Thank you so much.